Hello, everybody, and welcome to the talk today. I'm here to tell you about a lot of work that's going on in the province of British Columbia in response to the COVID-19 epidemic and how their digital transformation journey with Open Hybrid Cloud has accelerated their ability to deliver solutions quickly and effectively. So my name is Todd Wilson, and I am a chief strategist at Red Hat Canada. And I've recently joined Red Hat. Before that, I was working with the BC Developers Exchange in the province of British Columbia. My role there was delivering the technology platform to accelerate the work of their agile teams, working in the open and delivering solutions for the province. Now I'll give you a little bit of background about what the BC DevExchange is in case that's new to you folks. Over the course of the last 5 years, a lot of ground has been covered. The BC DevExchange took a holistic approach to digital transformation, addressing people, process, and technology. They focused on creating agile teams, a DevOps culture, agile procurements and policies, open source development, both consuming it and delivering it, driving standards through the community so that adoption of them was wide and easy, and being collaborative. Now, not just internally collaborative, but also externally collaborative with vendors and partners in other jurisdictions. So over the last 4 years on the technology side, when I talk about hybrid cloud, what I mean is something old and something new. So leveraging the existing data center and the private cloud experience that has led to the rapid capabilities in them accessing public cloud. So by private cloud, they've been using Red Hat OpenShift in their Kamloops data center for the last 4 years. And public cloud, they've spent the last 4 months figuring out how to leverage public cloud providers like AWS in order to accelerate teams' delivery. So in regards to COVID-19, this was a rapidly changing environment for teams to try to deliver it. I'm sure a lot of you here can sympathize and empathize with what was going on in March and late February. There was new information hourly. There was also not much clarity on what the priority was, what should be focused on first. All of the requirements were rapidly evolving. Every day there seemed to be new issues or new requirements. Also, a challenge inside government is that responsibility to deliver on these requirements involved multiple stakeholders, and sometimes those stakeholders were in different ministries, where there were traditionally not a lot of open communication channels, and also collaboration had been a bit difficult. Also, there was a low awareness of the digital capability that was emerging in government in BC. So traditionally, delivery of digital solutions took years, and there wasn't a lot of awareness of the progress that was made with the BC DevExchange. So what was the BC DevExchange focused on? So I'd like to back up a little bit and explore with you sort of what some of the leading premises were in order to accelerate digital delivery. So one of the things that the BC DevExchange was really focused on was a DevOps transformation. And I'll unpack DevOps a little bit. It means developers and operations working together in a new way. So from the BC DevExchange perspective is if you focus on a good developer experience and you add on that a good operational experience, you're going to end up with an enhanced user experience, which is the end result that we're all looking for. Any one of these by themselves doesn't quite work. If you're doing great developer experience work, but you don't actually focus on the user experience or the ops piece, you're missing a big part of the equation. So it was this direct correlation between the experience of a developer and the ops folks that really led to enhanced delivery. And that involved things like developer self-service, DevOps maturity, automating processes that typically took a lot of people and a lot of time and making them quick and repeatable. Infrastructure as code, so that means everything is written as code and is executable and repeatable. Leveraging open source, making sure that collaboration is easy for folks, that they know where to go to get information, they know where to go to find things that they can use. And that also that there's a community in place to lead them down the right path and lead them towards standards. Now, as opposed to the traditional way of enterprise delivery of applications, and also the experience that's familiar to many of you, I think, is that oftentimes developers are faced with a lot of friction in delivering their solutions. And the operations of applications is complicated. The environment that they're delivered in is very difficult to work with. And then that in turn results in a negative user experience. These results are failure to deliver, oftentimes long outages, and then also things that are disproportionately difficult cause feature disparity across multiple applications. So some apps are great, some are terrible, and we don't know why, just inconsistency. So what specifically set up BC for the app development and COVID-19 response? Well, there was a digital transformation effort underway, and this effort was closely tied with the BC DevExchange. When the BC DevExchange started, digital transformation wasn't the label that we put on it, but since it's developed over the years, it has developed into a cornerstone of the province's digital transformation journey. There's also a hybrid cloud capability that is key to allowing teams to be able to deliver in the environment that they're familiar with and that they can move quickly in. And then this brings rapid delivery of your solutions. So specifically in BC, we had agile teams ready to go. There was open source development of tools and code that was ready for teams to reuse and leverage. There was an open communication channel for developers to find information, to find people, to find expertise in their Rocket Chat channel. There was already a community of DevOps practitioners and experts waiting to help. We had containerized deployments for quick and easy deployments of the applications. And also we had API integration standards available that were driven by the community and easy for the developers to understand and leverage. So this diagram is a little bit of a complex one, but I'll walk you through it. This is the BC government open hybrid cloud delivery landscape. This is what they are using right now to deliver their apps. So these red arrows are part of their deployment targets. So this is where the apps run. And so if you look at the top one, there's AWS, public cloud, everybody's heard of it. That's the least mature of the BC government deployment targets, but it's also one of the ones that's the most effective. Then there's the legacy data center in the middle. And again, that's in Kamloops. Everyone is familiar with it in the BC government, and it's a well-known, safe environment. And then for the last 4 years, we've been running Red Hat OpenShift as an on-premise private cloud in the government data center. So this has been able to give teams the ability to leverage cloud-like features in the government data center, quickly deploying apps as containers, and then reusing and reiterating a lot of open source code components. So there were 3 agile teams in this scenario that were not centrally managed. They were working independently, and that's okay because they were part of the DevExchange community. They were used to leveraging common services and practices, and they were used to communicating with their other peers in order to coordinate and self-organize. They worked a lot of overtime, and I don't want to minimize the effort, but the outcome was nothing short of amazing. They delivered 4 applications in a week, and this is incredible. And those applications were a traveler screening application, a farm worker screening application, a backend that monitors travelers, and also silviculture worker management. And silviculture is tree planters. So this was managing the transportation and the quarantine of workers, many whom were arriving from foreign countries and therefore required 14-day quarantines. So let me walk you through what Agile Team 1 delivered. Agile Team 1 reused their own code, and then they were able to deliver both of those applications onto the AWS layer. Agile Team 2 heard about that delivery in Rocket Chat, found the code on GitHub, and used it again in a different deployment environment. So this kind of instances of reuse of code is a massive accelerator for teams. This is an incredible force multiplier that takes something that would be very difficult to start from scratch over and over again and wind up with feature disparity, some features in one app, none in the other. And then this is a way for teams to quickly and rapidly learn from what the other team has done and leverage it to its fullest potential. They were even able to redeploy that application in a different environment. Team number 2 was much more comfortable in OpenShift, and therefore they took the code that had originally been deployed in AWS and deployed it on-prem in the OpenShift private cloud that was running in the Kamloops data center. Team number 3 took a different approach. They had unique requirements that couldn't be simply reused, but a quick search of the open source solutions that were available on GitHub, and they found an open source business process framework that they could use called Camunda. They were able to rapidly deploy this to OpenShift using a standard container deployment script that was provided by the open source community. So in that GitHub repository of code, they found a file called deploy to OpenShift, and it was pretty much as simple as following the steps in order to get that code deployed. So within 3 days, they were able to deploy the application, configure it to the use cases and requirements that were needed for the Service BC group, and then have that ready for production use. Amazing. So the BC DevExchange also provides community API guidance through the BC Gov GitHub's repositories. So the applications were able to integrate into different legacy data structures across hybrid cloud implementations. So some of these applications were in the traditional data center in Kamloops. Some of the applications, like the traveler screening app, was integrated between AWS and OpenShift, and they were using APIs to do so based on the community-driven standard. So this is an amazing capability. And even the internal awareness of the DevExchange teams and what they're capable of is just emerging within the BC Gov. So if we look at this quote from Jamie Boyd and Corey Barclay. Jamie Boyd is the Chief Digital Officer in BC, and Corey Barclay is the CIO of the Ministry of Health in BC. They had a conversation about the digital framework back in the beginning of May. And so one of the things Jamie was highlighting was that it's becoming quite amazing at how teams that are used to delivering and working in the agile ways and embrace open standards and open source are really rising to the challenge quite more effectively and quickly than traditional teams. And then she asked Corey, based on what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently? And Corey comes back and says, the lesson learned is we would have been having the digital response team as part of their initial emergency structure that we set up. And this is because they were so effective in the early stages. And this is such a departure from what they were used to. They were focusing on the healthcare element and the healthcare element alone, which again was very important in this pandemic. But because they were used to the delivery arc of any digital solution being so long, that they had kind of discounted that capability. So now going forward, she's realized that that is definitely a tool that is very powerful and a tool that they should leverage as soon as possible. So you may ask, how does my organization create digital capability? And these scenarios aren't unique to BC, or they aren't unique to the public sector. The answer is, you can do it. Create a DevExchange. And reach out to us to hear about how Red Hat can help you with that. Red Hat has been involved in the BC DevExchange from the early days, and we live the open source mantra, and we are very well versed in how to help your organization deliver on some of its digital transformation goals. It's not magic. The DevExchange has operated on 3 fairly simple principles over their 5-year journey. These principles are working in the open, learn by doing, and co-create everything. And with these in mind, and if you remind yourself over and over again, you can breed the kind of transparency, the kind of capability, and the trust that's necessary in order to take some of those risks and some of those chances and deliver incrementally and get value out the door and have that be a win-win situation for everyone involved in order to co-create. So on that note, I'll end off. I've pasted some useful links into the presentation, and I will post those so you can access them. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye now.